Hello and welcome to Nerd Bytes. In this episode, we're going to take a look at baseline alert conditions. Let's go ahead and set one up. So I'm going to choose application metric baseline, and I'm going to choose my web portal application here. So what are baseline alert conditions and how are they different from normal alert conditions? The biggest difference with baseline alert conditions is that they don't use static thresholds. So the way that a baseline works is that you choose an application. Here we chose web portal, and you choose a metric for that application that you'd like to alert on. So here we've chosen web transaction time. And the way that baselines work is that once you've selected your metric, the baseline algorithm will look at the historical data for that metric to see how that metric has behaved in the past. And it will use that past behavior to predict what that metric is going to look like in the future. And you can see this in the chart that's been generated here on the right. So if I just deselect this for a moment, this white line that you can see on the chart is the value for this metric that the baseline algorithm has predicted. And the blue line here is the actual value for this metric that we recorded. Here we're looking at the past 2 days worth of data. So this is the actual value that we saw for this metric. And the way that baselines work is that it will alert you based on the difference between the actual value here in blue and the predicted value that we see is this white line. And so we can actually see that there's a red area highlighted here on the chart. It says critical violation. And so if I had set this condition up, this would have generated a critical violation at this point in time. I can control how sensitive I want the baseline condition to be using this slider on the left. So if I want it to be more sensitive and generate more violations, I can move it to the left. On the other hand, if I want it to be more forgiving, I can move it to the right and it will generate fewer violations that way. So what are some use cases for baseline conditions? Well, one common use case is if you want to alert on data that has a kind of a periodic nature, like let's say throughput. So I'm looking at throughput for this application here. And of course, with throughput, I can see that I have peak times during the day and I have times where I have less traffic. Now, if you were to try to alert on that using a static threshold, you would run into the problem of where do you set the static threshold, right? Do you set it down here where it's going to, potentially trigger during the nighttime, or do you set it higher where it might not capture certain behavior during peak times? The advantage with a baseline condition is that the baseline will automatically adjust the threshold so that during peak times it will alert if the values are lower than they're expected during that time, whereas it will also take into account the fact that at night your throughput is going to be a little bit lower. So if you'd like to learn more about baseline conditions, I highly recommend that you take a look at our documentation site, docs.newrelic.com. Thank you for attending this Nerd Bite, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.